incredibly difficult to understand today. How did the average teenager, how were they able to read and comprehend and get the incredible importance of what was written during their time? How did we fall off of that track? And so I went back and started kind of researching about the education of the Founding Fathers. And make a long story short, I ran into this idea that they were classically educated. Thomas Jefferson at 16 got an entire completed set of an ancient Greek philosopher written in the original Greek, and at 16 he was so excited he was able to read it. I kind of thought about that as like a 16-year-old today getting, I don't know, like an iPad or a new car or something. And so if you jump ahead to about the early 20th century, and you look at the progressive founders of modern education, you see all of these people who begin to try to take education and change it from the classical model into something more progressive. And Benjamin Bloom, whose Bloom's taxonomy is known for, came up with this idea that this is how people learn. Do you have a marker?
Are you going to take the microphone with you?
No, you talk loud.
All right. Can y'all hear me in the back? Yes. Okay. So Bloom says that there's 6 levels that we go through to learn. Starting at the bottom, knowledge, comprehension, application. And that's like the first level of learning. So you got to know something, you got to understand it, and then you got to know how to apply it. Well, that kind of sounds like CC a little bit. I mean, we kind of use something that sounds similar to that. But this is where it kind of falls off the rails. Then you go through analysis, synthesis, and ultimately an evaluation. Now, if you're going to be considered a good teacher in modern education, you have to spend 80% of your class time on the upper 50% of Bloom's taxonomy in the classroom. So that means that you only get to spend 20% of your time in the classroom giving them knowledge or requiring them to understand knowledge. Now think about this from a CC standpoint. These two more or less represent our grammar phase. These next two represent dialectic, and these last two represent the rhetoric phase. We spend upwards of 7 years in the grammar phase of CC. But teachers are required by the pressure of losing their jobs to every single day take their class of 30, not 8, 30 every single day, from knowledge to evaluation. So as a social studies teacher, teaching American history, and we're talking about the Declaration of Independence, it's not required of me for them to know, my students, to know who wrote the Declaration of Independence, what's in the Declaration of Independence, when was the Declaration of Independence written, what are the circumstances that brought about the writing of the Declaration of Independence. My administrators, principals, they all would ask me to ask questions like, students, my one administrator said, Mr. Roberts, if you really want to be an effective teacher, you always need to keep this in mind. You should be able to ask a classroom of 30 students one question, get 30 different answers, and all of them be right.
Oh, Lord.
Mr. Roberts, when you get to that point, that's when you've become a successful and effective teacher. And so I'm teaching 7th grade American history, realizing that they wanted me to stay on this hat. They wanted me to ask questions like, if you had to write the Declaration of Independence today, how would you write it? As if I really cared. about their opinion about starting the greatest nation in the world without knowing anything about starting a nation.
Amen.
And so we were homeschooling our little girl. I took our timeline cards. And I started from Columbus forward. And we would come into the classroom, and I'd give them like 4 cards a week. And we start memorizing. I had 7th graders who were on 2nd, 3rd, and 4th grade reading levels. So I asked my principal, I said, listen, if I get through the benchmarks and standards and all the things by the end of the year, is that okay? He was like, well, yeah, because I was going to spend the first half of the year just going through copy work, trying to increase their literacy. I was going to give them great sentences. They were all going to be like history, timelines, and just make them copy to try to increase their reading level. And I was using a classical model. And when I got evaluated, they came into the classroom and observed that I was teaching classically and that I was spending the majority of my time in the first semester of the school year at this level here because I had to build them up using their taxonomy to get to this point in the second half of the school year. To me, it just made sense. Let's give them the knowledge, let's give them the grammar that they otherwise didn't get all the way up until 7th grade. However, I was evaluated as a poor teacher. I was observed 11 times in 15 calendar work days.
Wow.
Now, some of you as teachers know you don't really get evaluated observed more than about 4 times a year, and 3 of those are usually announced, and you at least can prepare a superb lesson. 11 times in 15 straight days, I had everybody from the second assistant principal all the way to the assistant superintendent of the district came in and observed, and every single time I was written up for not having new information, going through review again, all of these different things, and it was poor, and they created a paper trail, and I happened to be running for governor at the time, and so they said, Mr. Roberts, we're going to ask you to please step aside. You know you don't want this to go public. And I'm like, really? I'm like, they had no understanding. They had no grammar. They had not a clue. The modern education system does not have a clue. And what we spend 7 years on, 5 years on, 4 years on, and for the rest of their lives, we take them through these phases in seasons of their life. We don't take them through this on a daily basis and shortchange them on the grammar phase and expect them to magically wake up as 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th graders and be incredible rhetorics in their abilities in school. This is the failure. And listen, this is in Christian education. This is in homeschool education. It's called homeschooling, but it's really not homeschool. Virtual academy, connections, all these different things that come out, it's all part of the modern education system. Even a lot of great Christian curriculums, they use this same Bloom's taxonomy system. That's what really separates CC from all the other Christian curriculums and abilities, is that we understand grammar and dialectic and rhetoric, and we do the time appropriate necessary for those, and we don't rush this process and hope and pray that when they become adults that they have learned something, that something has stuck. We place it in there, we talk about it with them, we get them to defend it, and all from a Christian worldview in a time in life right now, for such a time as this, where they need to defend their faith because the world and our society is attacking, whether you accept it, whether you like it, whether you dislike it, agree with it or disagree with it. They are coming for the souls of our children, and we need to, our weapons are not carnal, and we need to arm them and give them the weapons, protect and guard their hearts, for out of it flow the issues of life. We are to guard and shepherd their hearts until they have been given the tools and they can show that they can successfully defend and protect their own hearts.
Amen.
Amen?
Amen.